The aggregate demand curve. Why does the aggregate demand curve slope downward? There's a few explanations here to explain why it slopes downward. And also there's a model that I used to build in previous classes that goes through the Keynesian cross model that develops how the aggregate demand curve is built and constructed through another set of models. I've given up on teaching that in favor of teaching more applied stuff. And that Keynesian cross model has too many assumptions, so I find it's better just to get to the conclusions. And really, here in the aggregate demand model, what I want you guys to remember is what makes the aggregate demand curve shift and which direction. That general idea is the most important part for this class. But if you want to know why the aggregate demand curve slopes downward, this slide here has the main three reasons. So I'll just rapidly go through them. It's interesting to know why it's shaped this way, but it's what comes after that's going to be more relevant for the rest of this chapter and for the next chapter as well. So why does the aggregate demand curve slope downward? Well, there's the wealth effect that says that a lower price level increases real wealth. So if you have a certain amount of savings and everything goes cheaper, well, you seem richer, so you encourage spending on consumption. So that's why we could say that at that lower price level, there's going to be a greater amount of spending. We could also think of the interest rate effect. A lower price reduces the demand for money. If we go back to the money demand, money supply curve, which we'll actually just see in the next chapter. But if we go to that money demand, money supply curve that you'll see at the beginning of the next chapter, if the money demand shifts left, it's going to drop interest rates. If it drops interest rate, there's going to be more investment. So that's why it also goes further to the right. And the real exchange rate effect, the lower price causes an increase in net exports because our goods are relatively cheaper all of a sudden. Therefore, we will export more. The big thing, though, is understanding the shifts of the demand curve. So essentially, if you just want to know really rapidly what's going to cause shifts in the demand curve, just think about all the components of GDP, of the expenditure approach. Consumption, investment, government spending, or net exports. Any of these, if any of them fall, AD is going to shift to the left. If any of these would rise, AD would shift to the right. It's as simple as that. So just think about those elements. And these elements here, you don't see taxation. Does that mean that taxation has no impact? No. If we tax the people less, there's the potential that they're going to increase their consumption to a certain extent. But if we tax the people less, it might lead to a certain level of budget deficit, which will lead to higher interest rates, which will lead to investment going down. So it all depends. But just think about it that if at that price level there is a general decrease in one of these and the other ones don't change, or a few of them are decreasing or a few of them are going up, if they're decreasing, it's going to go left. If they're increasing, it's going to go right. So here's a few examples, but any example would work. Shifts arising from events in consumption, changes in consumption, an event that makes consumers spend more at a given price level, a tax cut, or a stock market boom. So stock market boom does not change anything in aggregate demand other than it makes people feel relatively wealthier than before. And because of that, it fuels spending, fuels consumption. So it might be temporary, short-lived, such as any other booms out there. However, for that moment being, it's going to stimulate consumption. So all of these will shift the aggregate demand curve to the right. An event that makes firms invest more at a given price level. So like I said, the main things that shift the investment curve. So optimism about the future of an industry or the economy. A fall in interest rates due to an increase in the money supply. Anything like that will shift AD to the right. So that's the C, that's the I. We have government spending and net exports left. An increase in government purchases of goods and services Greater spending for some reason shifts to 80 to the right. Shifts arising from changes in net exports, an event that raises spending on net exports at a given price. So a boom experienced by a major trading partner. So let's say China or anyone else, the US just explodes and like goes through a big boom. They're going to want more of our goods potentially because they're richer all of a sudden. So we're going to export more. If our exchange rate depreciates, we're going to export more. If we encourage people to buy more domestically, we're going to spend more here, import less. All of those will lead to the aggregate demand curve shifting to the right. So simply, just remember that what shifts aggregate demand curve? Any of the components of GDP, if it's going to make the GDP number rise, shift to the right. GDP fall, shift to the left. As simple as that.